Hey guys, welcome to El Dia Opina, which translates to The Day's Opinion. I am Dia, the day's opinion, and today we will be discussing the very controversial subject that is the Australian Blair Cottrell. Blair Cottrell has become well known in Australia for his views on Islam and the left. He is labelled as a neo-Nazi. He is viewed by many to be far right. This is mostly stated by left-wing media. The following video is not about where I stand in my own views. Blair has views I do not agree with. This is specifically about an exchange he had on television on a program known as Hack Live, where different people from opposite ends of the political spectrum have a chance to voice and raise their concerns. Let's get started.
Of the new wave of Aussie patriots, why do you think you've seen an increase in support?
I think it's due to the fact that Australian people generally feel ostracised socially from society because they don't have anything they're allowed to be proud of. When it comes to national pride, if people are going to be proud of a Southern Cross or their own national flag, they're immediately considered racist or uneducated bogans. People in Australian society are searching for something to believe in. They might find that in religion, but in the case of our movement, they have found it in national pride.
National pride is on the decline. Why? Because it is completely accurate that now someone who demonstrates any form of patriotism is labelled by the regressive left as a racist and not being inclusive. Does that make any sense at all? Australia is a multi-ethnic continent with all different kinds of people. So if Australia as a whole represents so many different ethnicities, how can it be racist to demonstrate pride in the land that has housed all these different individuals? Pride in Australia is pride overall. Sure, we are a flawed nation, but is that really worth saying when you're in the middle of an uplifting moment? To add to Blair's point, check out this article on the Daily Mail UK. It's become racist to have a Southern Cross tattoo. Parlours say no one wants to get the patriotic ink anymore, as embarrassed punters rush to cover up the symbol with other designs. Southern Cross tattoos are falling out of favour and increasingly being covered up. Tattoo parlours are reporting fewer people getting the patriotic 5-star symbol. Some Australians opting to cover it up and erase their tattoos due to the racist stigma. This is just one example of how the left's shrieking is actually taking effect.
I think it's really interesting because what Blair has said sounds to me essentially like a very dangerous trajectory towards radicalisation.
Right.
In all honesty.
And you actually work with radicalised young Muslims. So you're saying there's a comparison there?
I have contact with people who not only young Muslims as well, people from the far right.
Right.
And they're like two sides of the same coin.
I think this lady is not wrong exactly. Groups of any kind could result in going too far and perpetuating a dangerous narrative. Example, Greenpeace. Have a look at this clip.
A big change in attitude had occurred. The peace in Greenpeace had faded away. Only the green part seemed to matter now. Humans, to use Greenpeace language, had become the enemies of the earth. Putting an end to industrial growth and banning many useful technologies and chemicals became common themes of the movement. Science and logic no longer held sway. Sensationalism, misinformation, and fear were what we used to promote our campaigns.
It is indeed a worry that a group with a once noble cause can degrade themselves to dishonesty and sensationalism. Blair Cottrell's The United Patriots Front has barely been afforded the chance to flourish. It could dissolve into madness, but it could just as easily be a raging success. One should also note the reason the United Patriots Front exists. The Muslim convert fails to realize that the left is exactly what she is claiming regarding a dangerous trajectory. The left, to which she has ignorantly capitulated, are an extreme group. The difference here is that they hold power and influence in our school systems, media and journalism. So the overall general public are not aware of how much the left is in fact influencing their mindset. Blair along with many other Australians and people at large, are aware of this.
Hang on, she's compared you to radical Muslims. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, I haven't beheaded anybody, I have not killed anybody, and I do not plan to kill anybody or blow anything up, so I think it's a bit of a long shot.
His answer here is simply perfection. I'll just say the politically correct thing and add the disclaimer that obviously not all Muslims are radicals. However, the peaceful majority are irrelevant.
There are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today. Of course, not all of them are radicals. The majority of them are peaceful people. The radicals are estimated to be between 15 to 25%, according to all intelligence services around the world. That leaves 75% of them peaceful people. But when you look at 15 to 25% of the world Muslim population, you're looking at 180 million to 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. That is as big of the United States. So why should we worry about the radicals, 15 to 25%? Because it is the radicals that kill. Because it is the radicals that behead and massacre. When you look throughout history, when you look at all the lessons of history, most Germans were peaceful. Yet the Nazis drove the agenda. And as a result, 60 million people died. Almost 14 million in concentration camps. 6 million were Jews. The peaceful majority were irrelevant.
When very few are speaking out against radicalization. My only guess is they are afraid of being murdered. So what does that tell you?
No, I don't think Blair's a positive role model
Why
at
not?
all. I think he looks for the negative in every scenario. I think he's got a history of promoting divisive commentary.
Dude needs to cite his sources when making sensational claims such as this.
From what I understand, Blair pulls himself up as an individual who wants to further Australia's causes and further the public, but he's actually got a history of attacking women.
Boom! There it is! This is what shits me. Why? Because even if that were true, which would be horrible and worth ridicule and judgment, it is off topic of immigration and the subject overall. What this dude is doing is deflecting and painting Blair as the enemy. This is what the left does best. They don't have the ability to counter an argument with structured rebuttals, so instead they attack with a character assassination. What does Blair's breakfast have to do with the subject? What does Blair's workout routine have to do with the subject? Hello. What does his previous dating life have to do at all with politics? The answer will shock you. Nothing.
I actually
Blair,
don't
what do you say to
I
that?
actually don't have a history of attacking women. I've never.
You went to jail for stalking your ex-girlfriend's partner.
Correct. I've been in prison before. I've experienced things in my youth which most people have not. But I'm much wiser for that reason. I'm a person who constantly tries to push the boundaries of conventional society, which is why I'm sitting on this show right now. But I've never attacked a woman in my life, in my list of convictions, which are not very long. I've never laid a finger on anybody. So to sit there and assert, sir, that I have attacked a woman without even knowing the first thing about my character, I would question the morality of your own.
I don't really need to elaborate on that. Blair has articulated himself quite competently. It is unfortunate that he has convictions in the past where most people don't deal with these trials and tribulations. However, it would be unwise to discount these experiences in how he has grown as a person. He has matured, evolved as a man. Also, he is completely transparent about it and conducting himself in a very poised manner.
So that's just from a straight Google search. If you look up Blair, it's attributed to a YouTube statement where he says that he's used psychological and physical violence against women.
And terror.
I never wrote that and I never said that. False statements are attributed to my person all the time. I am constantly the recipient of character assassination. And it feels as though on this show, that is what we're going for right now.
Blair has explained himself quite well. Okay, let us delve into this Google search, shall we?
Own culture or for what you believe. That is the moment that you deserve to be conquered.
the internet is a beacon of mistruths and lies. I'm not going to lie and say that Blair is correct with all of his political views. I am pro-Israel, and I am not sure if what I have researched on Blair is accurate, but until I hear it out of the cat's mouth, I'd rather reserve judgment than believe the apparent social media accounts that claim to be him. I will remain in the camp of innocent until proven guilty on this front. However, this is off topic. I just thought this side note needed to be said. I will also add that Fairfax is the site in which this information was located. I mean, Fairfax. You know why I'm mentioning this, right?
And Afghanistan is obviously a predominantly Muslim country. And the reception we received as foreign soldiers carrying weapons was overwhelmingly positive. So we would be walking through a field on a hot day on patrol, and we would have a farmer approach us, and we're trudging through his crops, damaging his field, and he'd say, "Hold it up here for a minute, guys," in his own language. We'd have interpreters with us, and he'd come back with some food, and he'd put a meal down on the ground for us, and we'd eat with him. And I think that's an amazing example of how Muslims can be a positive influence on the world.
Yes,
and I asked the question, Blair, if you saw foreign soldiers walking down the street in Australia, how would you respond to them, and would you be willing to break bread with them?
It really depends on how they would treat me. Now, to suggest that an entire collective of people, a quarter of the world's population, ought to be judged by the behaviour and actions of a single member of that collective, I think is quite small-minded.
What do you...
I mean, he said everything that needs to be said. Statistically, Muslims are not known to assimilate well into Western society. Good old Sweden can be our example here. According to the Muslim Issue, Sweden, a 5% Muslim population, commit 77.6% of all rapes. 5% is a tiny minority of an overall population. It is scary to think that Australia, at only 2.6% of the population of 24 million, could wind up as a mirror image of Sweden and its current crisis. If we do not heed the words and example of Sweden, Germany, and listen to those like Blair who are trying to warn us, I mean, our future does not look that bright. This is called a favour. Someone is trying to warn you, a favour to a country that one loves. This is not racism.
Hey, Mum.
What do you make of this version of patriotism?
Oh, look, I love that you're passionate. You know, I love that there are people out there that, you know, care about the world. But I think, personally, you've got to chill out a little bit.
Okay, so now the direction of this exchange has completely shifted, no thanks to this chick. It has become a race war. She makes it purely about colour. She does not focus at all on the argument or the issues, and she's extremely patronising.
You suggest that there is some sort of white privilege in this country. Do you believe that?
Oh, well, if we look at who's most locked up, who is most disadvantaged...
Which has nothing to do with the individual decisions people make, but you believe...
At every turn, Blair counters and rebuts every ridiculous statement. It is sad that a fact happens to be a fact, even when it reflects the community you represent. According to ABC News, Aboriginals are more likely to commit violent offences compared to the non-Indigenous population. That doesn't mean all Aboriginals are bad. That isn't at all the implication, but I am not going to call purple green when purple is purple. A spade is a spade, and a fact is a fact, and facts don't care about your feelings. I've heard that somewhere before.
Is that because Aboriginal people commit more crimes, or is that because there's racism in this
All right,
country?
I don't want to get too deep into this
Anyway,
narrative.
but point number
That's
two...
a little bit
Things
too
I'll
deep,
pick up.
isn't it?
Well, it's actually quite a tangent.
So it sounds
Quickly
like
finish your point
racism,
there,
though, if you
Naika.
think Aboriginal people are more likely to offend, or,
They
I don't
are more
know,
likely
maybe
to offend.
intergenerational...
Facts trump feelings. Aboriginal people are 20 times more likely to commit violence. Indigenous people are 15 to 20 times more likely to commit violent offences than non-Indigenous people, according to research released today.
What exactly are you fighting for?
Fighting for my people,
And who are your people?
Australian people.
Even Muslims? Are they Australian people?
If they're going to live by Australian standards, then certainly.
This bit here is definitely hard to read. I think this look on his face is kind of like, what the fuck? Obviously, we want all Australians, including Muslim Australians, in this country to be safe from extremism. But Blair doesn't make it necessarily obvious. I agree with the interviewer here, so let's just move right along.
You're kafir.
Am I?
Kafir is.
Mashallah, you're a scholar of Islam. I didn't even know it.
I know enough about Islam to give you this statement. Kafir is characterised by his or her worldliness, their ability to only live for the world and please themselves.
You don't need to school me on Islam.
Our society right now pretty much does just that. We don't live for any God. We don't live for anything better than ourselves, really. We just live to enjoy ourselves right here. Your brothers abroad would consider you kafir, and they wouldn't be too pleased with the fact that you live in this society and do not adhere fully to the principles of Islam.
Lydia, what do you say?
He's not. You're not a scholar on Islam, for starters.
Are you a scholar on Islam?
No, I'm not, and I don't purport to be either.
I don't purport to be either. I'm telling you what I know about Islam.
This bit here does frustrate me. Blair has obviously gone out of his way to research the subject of Islam. There's nothing wrong with that. I researched the subject of Mormonism. I was fascinated by Mormonism for a very long time, just because I was fascinated by it. I didn't want to become a Mormon. So why does his research and lack of ignorance somehow get him in trouble? It's almost like he's done something wrong. How is that an argument, lady? Why don't you respond to his argument rather than attacking him for being well researched?
Well, it's kind of sad, to think that my parents who, came here, in the 90s, they wouldn't be welcome here anymore. They came here on the skilled visa, so they came here to work. They were qualified and had experience, and they came here to benefit Australia, to work in society, to be amongst Australians.
Well, I can understand that, okay? I can understand that being a Muslim in Western society is probably a difficult thing.
I don't know about everyone else, but this looks like sympathy for another human who happens to be Muslim. I don't detect hatred or racism here.
You need to work towards the preservation of your own people just as we need to work towards the preservation of ours.
You're not making it easy for our mob. You are dangerous.
Well, segregate yourselves from us if that's how you feel.
You
and
are
rely less on us.
so dangerous.
This could have been an epiphany moment, but instead she is demonizing all white people and saying they are dangerous. Generalization much?
Where do you stand?
There are a lot of, well, not a lot, but there are quite a few Aboriginal Muslims, so what a wonderful Venn diagram it must be to have people like Pauline Hanson back up and running. The way I see it, in terms of black people, and because that's my experience and I don't pretend to speak for anyone else but myself, it's not Muslims who invaded my country. It's not Muslims who lock up my people. It's not Muslims who kill our people and killed our people. It's not Muslims who fought against my people in the frontier wars. That was done by white people. So excuse me if I do not feel the same way.
If Muslims found this country before white people, do you think Muslims would have afforded you a right because you had some sort of sentimental connection to the land? They would have wiped you out, marched over the top of you, and you would have been
Aboriginal
died.
people.
Yeah, the Macassans, bro, we've been trading for centuries.
Islam dominates wherever it goes. It's not interested in your sentimental connection to the land. You have so much more to lose by Muslim immigration than we do.
We
your
already
people are in
lost
a
a
smaller
lot,
number.
and that was from your ancestors.
Dear God, face palming all over the place. White people did a lot of harm. This is just a reality, but I think I documented exactly what Muslim slave traders did and how they treated the black population centuries before white people in the United States were even slave trading. Now, it's completely irrelevant, okay, that non-white people such as Muslim Middle Easterners ran the African slave trade that preceded the American version. Theirs went from 1450 to 1850. Over 12 million African lives were bought and sold as property. And if you can believe it, they were treated more cruelly than the American equivalent, which itself is bad. Can we live in our past, or should we move into our future? Recognize the faults and sins of the previous generation, sure. But do not dwell on them like you personally committed those acts. It serves no one to do that. Don't blame the child for the sins of the father.
We massacred Indigenous people, Blair.
And so what?
We massacred Indigenous people. Okay, so we means that those people who are personally on the program, they did it? Or does it mean that their ancestors in the past that had nothing to do with them did it? It's like when people say, oh, our favorite football team won. We won. We won. No, you didn't. You didn't win just because you aligned yourself with that particular team and you associate yourself with them. You haven't technically won. The individuals that have played that sport have won, and you are happy for them. I am Spanish. I come from a race of people who colonized and conquered many nations. Does that mean that I'm personally a rapist and a colonizer and a rapist, or does that mean that my ancestors were and I have no control of my past? Serious question. Well, this portion here does not reflect well at all on Blair. It got heated, and it appears he is making outrageous claims that are not based in reality. I can only assume that it was an in-the-moment, unintentional outburst. Either way, it is not cool. What the early settlers did to the Aboriginal population was tragic and cruel. Where Blair is correct is when he asserts that Aboriginals and Australians have a similar goal, which is preserving the culture of each group respectively.
I think I agree on that point.
Oh my God, I think we're connecting, Blair.
You might be furiously agreeing.
Your motivation in politics, in my view, from what I can see...
Tell me about myself.
You are motivated
Thesis of Nayuka Holder.
You are motivated by politics, or your primary motivator, I think, is a concern for your own people, concern for your own culture. My motivation is just the same. I have a culture and I have a people
too. But I do not want to kick you out.
I don't want to kick you out.
I don't want to kick Muslims out. I don't want to kick anyone out. I want to figure out how we can confront the past, because we have a past that needs to be confronted, which is why I'm so passionate about treaties. I think it's an opportunity to actually confront the past. But I'm not willing, I'm not open to preaching to the worst in people, which is what you do.
No, it's
you
not.
are about
I represent
hate.
basic natural circumstances.
You're about hate, dude, and
no,
that
I'm not
must
about
suck.
hate.
I appreciate her attempt at humour here, as some levity was definitely required. I think her point was kind of all over the place. She accuses white people for everything they have done in the past, yet she is being afforded the chance to talk on a television show and is being given a platform. The same way Blair is being afforded the same platform, although it appears he is being ambushed by the majority. She doesn't want to kick anyone out, but she is preaching a platform of white ain't right and woe is me and, white people are bad. We need to move forward. Australia is a meritocracy. This means Aussies earn what they get based on hard work and qualifications. Your Aboriginal ancestry should not have any bearing on any job you try. Of course, that is an idealistic world, and I bet many Aboriginals have a story where they were overlooked for the job because of their race. But overall, Australia is simply not a racist country. Wanting to bar Muslim immigration is not racist, as Islam is not a race, it is a religion, it is a mindset, it is an ideology. Wanting to protect the people within Australia, which is a diverse country with many different ethnicities and religions, is most definitely not racist. So, I hope you guys all enjoyed my analysis of Blair's exchange on Hack Live. I've left all the links in the description below, and if you're feeling dandy and charitable, please fund my GoFundMe page for my trip to Israel. Well, share, like, and subscribe, and click the big red button. Thanks, guys. Till next time.